So you mentioned rocket fuel earlier, like putting the fuel in before you aim the rocket. I'm assuming you worked with like a branding agency for Crown Affair?
Just Shibuya.
Just show.
Yeah.
So if you're working with one person or a branding agency, I feel like a lot of times brands will work with somebody and expect that the brand on the other side comes out fully done and in this beautiful, really big brand book. But like, what is some of that fuel that goes in, even in those early days when you still don't really fully know, or maybe you did, and that's why it turned out so strong?
You know, the brand working with Show, and then he was working with this guy named Cole, who I literally just had coffee with, who's an incredible copywriter, and like figuring out the brand system where we're like, this is actually going to last and be timeless and it's not trendy. It takes so much restraint and sitting on your hands to not jump on trends.
I mean, you can't really jump on trends
No.
or trendy things or trendy fonts, colors,
I
styles.
used to joke, I used to play a game where like, there was a time in like 2020, early pandemic, where people would just like superimpose their image into like 90s movies. Like it would be like Cher Horowitz with like this product. And I'm like, I don't know what any of these brands are.
Right.
And you see, by the way, like you see brands mimic and copy you, and then eventually they get off of it because they're just on to the next thing. It's really required sitting on our hands. I also think too, it's honestly trickier now. I've always assumed the customer's smart. And I think this is like, I remember I was listening to a podcast, Armchair Expert. He was interviewing BJ Novak, who was a writer on The Office. And he was saying how like before he got The Office and started working on it, he was hired for this like Fox show that was like laugh track, like 8 p.m., like prime slot. And so let's call that distribution. You're going to get viewers. But like it wasn't really good. Mm-hmm. And I think The Office, he was like, that role would have like paid my mortgage, would have like paid for this, like all this stuff. And then I think The Office, he said, was paying him like $7,000 to like an episode, which is like not whatever it is. And he took the Fox job because he like had to pay his rent. And he's like, I know this is obvious and I know this is like basic, but like I got to do this because it's like, I got to make money right now. And he ended up calling his agent, like crying days later, he was saying, because he's like, I got to do the thing that's true to me. So I ended up working on The Office. The Office took a few years to take off. Like it was not this runaway hit. And now it's like, I think the
Iconic.
most watched show on Netflix ever.
Yeah.
And the show that the Fox show, I forget what it was, but like no one talks about it now.
Right.
You know, and I think that's a really good analogy for building a brand, which is like, you've got to trust your gut and build the thing, even if it feels like not the thing right now, because they assumed the audience was smart and was in on the joke. And I think the tricky thing now, and I'm going to like eat my own words, which is like, I know that our audience is smart. The problem is with the world we're living in now and the TikTok of it all and just the inundation of like brands and random average stuff. Even the smart customer doesn't have an attention span. And that's the thing that I think excellent brands are solving for right now.
Yeah. I'm curious, like I always think, like I could immediately picture the Crown Affair Hotel or the Crown Affair Airplane.
Yeah.
Like, is that the true test in your mind of a good brand, or like how do you decide what's a good brand to you as somebody who's built one?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's about being able to fold the brand visual literacy over totally different categories. Like we talked about this, it is about the product. The product's the most important thing, but at the same time, like it's not about the product at all. And I always say, it's like, would you want to wear merch with the brand on it, you know, and feel proud of it? I also think it's a feeling. Like, and luxury brands do this the best. And I think like Loewe and Jonathan Anderson is like someone I reference all the time. Jacques Mousse does a really fun, playful job with it as well in terms of like all of their marketing strategy. For me, I'm mostly referencing luxury brands. And even like Loewe is a great example as you're building out a brand. Like we have our logo, which is Crown Affair. We have a couple versions of it that are based off Brancusi shapes and Ed Ruscha works. And then we also have our mark, which I could show you photos. We went through hundreds of marks to get it there. And I think Loewe does an amazing job with how they leverage their brand mark and how they leverage their logo. And if you like just saw that mark in the context of a cafe, like would you feel connected to it?
Yeah. I remember when we ran into each other at the cafe like a month ago.
Yeah.
I saw the MZ Wallace thing,
Yes.
the collab you did.
Yeah.
And I had no idea that MZ Wallace was the name of that brand, but I knew that style.
Yeah.
Right away.
Oh, totally. So iconic. And they're like a heritage brand, kind of. They've been around for almost 30 years. And, you know, that's an interesting strategy too.